25 laps on the track. And here they go. Women are off. The USA standard is 31:32 for this event. That's the auto qualifier for USA's. And the Olympic qualifier for Paris next year is the same as the world qualifier, 30:40, 73.6 second laps. So Reagan Yee out front to start. And then Taylor Werner, the other pacer behind her. And then Fiona O'Keeffe latching right on there.
They're aiming for 15:20 at 5K. The Pacers are supposed to go 5 to 6K if they can, which would be really great for Fiona O'Keeffe. As we said, the pace that O'Keeffe is looking for is 30:40, so that 15:20 would require about 73s per lap. Keep you posted as we go along. 73.6 is what I have written for the lap pace. So we'll keep you posted as we go on how it develops. As everyone knows, watching these 10Ks or must probably know, the 10K could be divided into kind of two parts, the first 5K and the second 5K. The first 5K mostly being about kind of getting out in a good pace, just kind of like zoning out, if you will, getting into that rhythm and getting halfway through the race. And then in the second 5K, starting to progressively eyes up, looking towards the finish and bringing down the pace, hopefully, for whatever that time goal or place goal that you're looking for. But as we said before, we have Yee at the front setting the pace for our athletes. First lap was a 72, so just under that goal pace, getting settled into it. The blue is the designation for the pacer on the wave lights. Those wave lights, when you see them, the blue is the pacer zone, the green is the target time zone, and there might be some other colored lights that pop up throughout, and if they do, we will give you that detail.
And like we said earlier, the wave light is provided by the Tracktown USA Kids Club. It's designed to develop and nurture fandom. Membership is free for children 8th grade and below. Visit TracktownUSAKidsClub.com to register today. Another notable athlete in the field here, tucked in right behind Fiona O'Keeffe, is Diane Van Es. And she doesn't have a world-beating 10,000-meter track time to her name, but she has run 15:07 for the 5K on the track. And she won the Dutch 10K Road Championships this year in 30:29. So that's a formidable performance there. Formidable mark.
Yes, very much so. So she, of course, is probably thinking, I've run 30:29. I've got a 15:07. I know that the Sound Running crew and these on races have phenomenal 10Ks. Let me go try to get my PR about 2 minutes, 3 minutes quicker.
And if I'm not mistaken, her 5,000-meter PR was set at Track Fest last year, too. So she's very familiar with these events. The second lap covered in 73 seconds. So 72, 73 for the first two laps. And they're coming up to the 1,200-meter mark right now, slightly ahead of schedule if you're following the lights.
And behind Van Es, we have WuGA HE, who is coached by Coach Lee, incredible coach out of Tucson. He's been working with some of these Chinese athletes that we've been seeing tonight for just under 2 years, he said. He spoke really highly of He, and he said that, she just ran a 15:11 at Stanford. She ran a second-place finish at the Asian Champs, which should hopefully, based on the points performance, guarantee her a spot at Worlds. He said she's sitting around in the 20s on the world chart. She's here trying to see if she can bring down her personal best, which currently sits at 31:46.
And that was run last year at Stanford, so she's had a lot of good luck at Stanford there. I won't call it luck. This is all skill for WuGA. 15:11 this year and 31:46 on the farm in Palo Alto. And this year, she ran on this track and ran a 10K at the Mount Sac Relays, and it was around mid-32s. So she's looking, Coach Lee said she's capable of running low 31s, and that's where he'd like to see her go right now. And she's tucked in to that front pack. So this is it's a long way to go for a smaller field. But if you have a core group of athletes like this up at the front, then they can help each other out. Especially, we'll see how far the Pacers are going to be going. But
yeah, you know, when we had the 10, there was Alicia Monson and Eilish McCoglin at the front, and they had pacing through 5K with the help of Josette Norris or Andrews. But then the chase pack didn't have a pacer, and it was this same Puma group kind of working together to pace each other with Natasha Rogers. I remember watching her putting in a lot of that grind work to try to bring the pace quick, which I think caught up with her a little bit at the end when Hennis was able to go by. But in this scenario, you know, we do have pacers, and we also have a small enough group that they're all kind of just, you know, clumped together, as you were saying, Jeff, to be able to, you know, get to the working end of the race, hopefully ready to compete.
And that's Emma Grace Hurley, too, of the Atlanta Track Club on the back of that pack, right behind WuGA HE. So a good group of athletes working together.
Emma Grace's personal best in the 10K is 36:48. So unless something crazy happens, I'm pretty confident that that personal best will be going down tonight.
When is that from? Let's see. From 2019. And from Birmingham, Alabama, too. So it could have been humid. Humid down the tough to run a 10K in the southeast.
Oof.
But
I would say these are pretty ideal conditions for a 10K. I mean, looking at the flags in the stadium, there is zero movement. It was a bit windy earlier in the night. For the first few races, there was a bit of a headwind on the finishing stretch, but as the night progressed, that wind disappeared, and now it is still and a little chill to the air, which is perfect for these 10K athletes.
This is absolute perfect conditions for 10,000 meter racing here. It's great.
Now let me see if I can get all of us the temperature.
And recapping the laps here, we had 72 first lap, then 73, 73, 73.7, 73.65. So through 2,000 meters in 6:07, and then they just crossed 2,400, 7:20, clocking another 73.3. So like clockwork, 73-second splits. What does that temp say?
54 degrees. So, yeah.
Lovely.
Pretty much perfect for these 10Kers. And they could not ask for a better pacer than what Reagan Yee is laying down right now. They had asked for 73.6, and she has been practically exactly that.
And like we said earlier, she is a Tokyo Olympian in the 3,000 meter steeplechase for Canada. But yeah, now let's see. We have Emma Grace Hurley dropping off a little bit. But there's a core pack there of 3 racers behind the 2 pacers. The racers start at Fiona O'Keeffe in that second blue top, and then Diane Van Es, and then WuGA HE.
Had Emma Grace Hurley on that pack, but she seems to have fallen back a bit. And so, yeah, as we look to the race ahead, it would be the 3rd, 4th, and 5th athletes that are the racers in this field.
So that lap was a 73.8 through 2,800 meters. Next time they come around, they'll be at 3,200, close to a 2-mile. We'll get to see what that number is. It's always exciting when you hit a landmark like that, especially for the high school viewers tuning in. See if they can match up.
True. Great point.
But they're just trucking along here at Mount Sac, this beautiful stadium. It looks amazing the way that On has decked it out tonight. Truly dressed to the nines, and we couldn't be happier in this state-of-the-art press box up here too.
Oh yes, quite comfortable.
With our athletic beers, non-alcoholic.
Yes, having a party up here as well.
And we'll see how far Reagan Yee's gonna go tonight. She's really doing a great job knocking these laps out as they get to 3,200 meters right now. and 9:47. So there aren't too many high schoolers that can run that, boys or girls. It's a great time on both sides. But that's a 73-1.
4:53 1600, 9:47 at the 3200. She looks great.
And now she starts to step off. So 2 miles is a good amount of work, especially at 9:47 when you're leading. There's good things to come this season for Reagan Yee. She had a good indoor season, and just getting to see her race tonight and then watching this pacing performance, she's got a lot of good fitness, and like you said, 14 weeks until the World Championship, so she's got a lot of time to sharpen up.
Agreed.
But now we have Taylor Werner out front, the teammate of Fiona O'Keeffe in that second position of the Puma Racing Elite, coached by Alistair and Amy Craig. They're out of North Carolina, and a solid group assembled there. They're a new club, but a lot of great athletes who've joined in, like Natasha Rogers and Fiona O'Keeffe, who both had fantastic results in the 10K at the 10 earlier this year. And Alistair and Amy both think that Fiona O'Keeffe's future is going to be in the marathon, but she's a little young right now, and they're working her into being able to handle all those longer miles.
Yeah, I think it's exciting to see more training groups coming together. I think we've been seeing in the last couple of years the success that can bring when these, especially with the dynamics of the teams we've been seeing lately, where it's really this support of one another. I think On Athletics Club is maybe the best example that comes to mind in the way that they show up to pace each other to phenomenal performances, phenomenal times. And the same goes here. You know, we saw with this Puma group at the 10, they were working together in that chase pack to try to go after that 30-40 standard. And we see it tonight while we have, teammates pacing each other with Taylor Werner, bringing her teammate through, hopefully through 5 or 6K.
And that was through 10 laps, so they just reached 4K at 12:15, 73.7 for Werner.
The average of the lap so far is 73.5, which is just under the 73.6 average pace would bring you to a 30-40. So they are setting up exactly for what they were hoping for.
And back on the subject of those groups too, obviously there are middle distance focus groups and there are distance focus groups. 2 years ago, it seemed like nobody could touch what the Bowerman Track Club was doing on the distance scene, and then slowly but surely, and maybe even quicker than we expected, a lot of these other groups are coming up to challenge, and there's a lot more parity across the board with groups like the On Athletics Club and the Puma Racing Elite, and obviously the Union Athletics Club, which is a more middle distance focused group. But so many great groups out there to follow, and they all have Instagram accounts, they all have different websites that you can follow and look at, and many of them are trying to share their training and their journeys along this road to the championship season. So make sure you check all of them out.
Absolutely.
And it's fun to follow along. And what I really want to see, and what we talk about a lot, is let's set these groups against each other. And like they are running against each other in competition like this, but scored competition.
Yeah.
Because we're getting to the point where these training groups are turning into real professional teams, and we all want to see them face off in some relays.
And we want to root for our home team, right?
Yeah.
You know, I love that the Puma group is in North Carolina, because there were a bunch of groups that had popped up along the West Coast. We had some, a ton in Flagstaff, Boulder, kind of little, the Minnesota area, but like we had the Northeast, but let's get some Southern teams. We got Atlanta, we've got Raleigh now. You can have your home team. You can root for the team and for the individual athletes within it. It's really, for me, where I hope as well that the sport will go. But let's look right now back to the split. So
4,800 meters there.
4,800 meters. We have not seen anything other than 73s thus far into this race. Very impressive pacing from these two ladies out front.
Taylor Werner clicking it off. So this, as they reach the end of this stretch here, they'll be at 5,000 meters, and that's halfway to the end of the race here. So we'll see how long Taylor Werner hangs in after 5,000. But Taylor Werner also in amazing shape too, being able to lead this race and get to 5,000 meters at under 15:20.
Right. It was. I mean, it's the same as we saw in the 10, where Josette Andrews led pace through 15 minutes at 5K. We saw her tonight come back and run a 14:41 for a 10-second personal best. So
43.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
43.
For
Almost
for the
10-second
nerds.
personal best. Like Andrews, I was just, rounding down. She makes me smile. So, but I think, major props to both of the women, especially Tyler Werner right now. I mean, the way that she's executing this pacing job shows her kind of control and command of the distance and of the pace.
Yeah, 73.6 there for 5,200 meters, 15:55. Just knocking them off, and they look really good. All of these ladies look fantastic right now. And they're coming up on a pack in front of them, so something for Taylor Werner to latch onto and roll in. But it's just the four of them right there hanging in, and this is a incredible facility to race at, and a great evening, too, for this to take place. And it looks like, oh, here we go. So Taylor Werner, we understand to be the pacer, but now Fiona O'Keeffe goes to the front.
I guess Taylor wants to get her full 6K in, or maybe she's just going to pull, who was it in the 10K that was supposed to be the pacer that decided to just finish the race?
Athanas Kyoko.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Have we ever seen a scenario where one of the racers wants to help the pacer so that the pacer can then come back and help them further into the race?
Oh, there we go.
We're not going to see that tonight.
She was committed to the 6K.
All right. So that's 5,600 meters there. And now it is Fiona O'Keeffe out front leading Diane Van Es and WuGA HE.
Waiting for the splits to share with all of you at from the 5,600.
That was a 73.6, so no time lost. Oh, it's 73.8.
73.8. Okay, well, I mean, not a single split outside of 73 from, wait, where? I have lost it on my screen. Well, Fiona O'Keeffe, 73 at lap 14. Now we're getting closer and closer to the part of the race where things get super exciting. In the meantime, we have our lead racers lapping other athletes. Luckily, it's a small field, so there shouldn't be too much passing going on.
So this is starting to look familiar now, as we saw Monson lead McColgan for the majority of that 10 race that took place earlier this year. But WuGA HE is trying to hang on still, and she's still in the green lights. They're ahead of 30-40 pace, as you can see Fiona O'Keeffe at the blue lights.
Yeah, the leaders have just stayed within the blue the entire time. Talking to Coach Lee, he was having a kind of internal debate of what he thought was best in this racing scenario, because it is a small field, and he felt for her that she, if they had their druthers, they may have set the pace for a little bit slower. They weren't quite aiming for 30-40. They were aiming for around that low 31s. But it was I like seeing that Hus just got out with the lead pack. If the option is to run by yourself, it was a great chance to just get pulled along through 6K of the race. And we see her falling back a little bit now, but not giving up too much ground. So we'll watch her as the race progresses as well.
Yeah, initially she drifted back slightly, but now it looks like she's gathering herself and able to hold that position more.
Well, the lead pack has come back out of the blue into the green, so they might have slowed ever so slightly. We'll see on the next split. They're about to come through. They just did come through with 9 laps to go.
Van Es in second place there is a Dutch athlete. and she recently ran 70 minutes for the New York City Half Marathon, 4th place there. That was on March 19th this year, so right after her 30:29 road 10K.
So that last lap was a 74 for the athletes. So that was their slowest lap thus far.
And that was for 6,400 meters, so lap 16, with 9 laps remaining. Inside 9 laps remaining right now. But it's all O'Keeffe here, leading the train. Fiona O'Keeffe of Davis, California, growing up there. Ran for Davis Senior High School, the Blue Devils.
Oh.
And then on to Stanford from there. So NorCal through and through until she moved out to North Carolina here, run for Puma Racing Elite.
And now we have a lead change as Van Es comes to the front with 8 laps to go.
So this is good to see at this point in the race too, that Van Es is willing to come up and work, because now there's something here. They've made something together out of this, and they know that they're in friendly company and they can help push each other, at least to the latter stages when they want to beat each other.
Yeah. Well, and those last 2 laps were 74. They've been running great. They haven't slowed much, and their average pace is 73.7, so just over the 30-40 pace. But, I think they're realizing that they need to kind of get after it in these, I would say the next 4 laps or so are going to be a big kind of mental challenge, as they're still 2 miles out. They need to put in that work to keep themselves on that pace they work so hard to set, but still not quite thinking about the finish line yet. So this is where they can help each other.
Yeah, and O'Keeffe back to the front now. Van Es behind her. So we'll see what this is as they approach 7,200 meters, lap 18. Now we're getting a good picture-in-picture too, so we can see how the rest of the field's doing. We can see her come through. That was a 75.6 for lap 18 for the lead there for Fiona O'Keeffe. And now O'Keeffe looking like she's going to try and do this on her own, as Van Es maybe drifting slightly. But that was a 76 for Van Es, and then WuGA HE 22.14, a 77 for lap 18 for her. The other athletes moving out here, ceding the inside lane to O'Keeffe and Van Es. Here at Mount Sac, where the world's best athletes compete.
Yes, that's true.
Some storied races have taken place here.
We see Werner running back and forth across the field to cheer on her teammate. Well, I see her on the infield. There's you see her, just a little bit peeping into the frame.
A great work for Werner today too.
Yeah.
15:8:18 pace, rough, going through 5,600 meters. So it'll be fun to watch what she's gonna do this season as well.
Agreed. And I always look to how they achieved those times as well, right? Like, she ran it looking really smooth. The only time I saw maybe a little bit of strain on her face was with the last 200 meters of her pacing duties when O'Keeffe went past her, but just so smooth and so even in her kind of execution of that pacing.
So O'Keeffe out front, Van Es in second place.
O'Keeffe brought it down to 74 that last lap. It had, so lap 16 was a, lap 15 was a 73. Then we had a 74 for lap 16, a 74 for lap 17, a 75 for lap 18, but then bring it back down to a 74 for lap 19. With these wave lights, it's a visual reminder for these athletes of where they are in relation to the pace that they've set. And so kind of after the pacer dropped out, you could see the green slightly getting away from them. They'll be able to see that in there. It's still close enough that they can see it, or at least that O'Keeffe could see it. And I think, we're now at 5 laps to go.
That was 8K that they just passed, 24:38 for O'Keeffe.
Yeah. And we've had Van Es slow down to a 77 for that lap for her. So she's giving some ground to O'Keeffe. But O'Keeffe, that was a 75 for her. So she's, gotten a little off of that 73 pace that they set early. But, when I look at her mechanics, it's still smooth and strong, especially, looking at it from the side, like great cadence.
And this is a tough thing to do solo now that O'Keeffe is out front. And we see where the green lights are from the booth, and they're about, I would say 40 to 50 meters ahead. And O'Keeffe's personal best from the 10 is 30:55, and those green lights are 30:40. So she very well could get a good personal record out of this race, too.
And now we're within, as she crosses the finish line, we'll be within 1 mile to go, which I think, from a mental standpoint is a huge kind of moment for these athletes to then start kind of counting down towards the finish and really focusing on like only a mile left. And so we'll watch to see if that kind of proximity to the finish line adds some energy to O'Keeffe, who's, done once the excellent pacing duties ended, has really done the bulk of this work the last 3K of the race.
Yeah, and 75.9 for that last lap for O'Keeffe. So she's slowing, and this is a dark place at this point in race for 10,000 meter athletes. It's a tough place to be. Your body is heavy. You got to swing. You got to swing those legs with with all of that fatigue.
You got to pass people, but she looks great. Like, that's what I'm surprised when I'm seeing the splits are slightly slower. I'm surprised just because she still looks really great. Like, I'm not noticing any visible changes in her mechanics yet. I mean, maybe a little less pop, but that's natural as you get late into a race. So,
and she's going by XiuZhen MA, Chinese athlete here.
That was a 75 as well.
So that's 75.5, which is better than the 75.9 previous lap through 8,800 meters. So she's inside 3 laps to go now. And she's done many intervals at this distance leading into this race.
Yes.
Practiced this many times and obviously done this at the 10 a couple months ago.
Van Es, for those who are watching, that was a 77 last lap for her, and He was a 78.
O'Keeffe inside 1,000 meters to go now. When she comes up to the line here, it'll be 2 laps remaining. And you're right, her cadence looks like it's still sharp, and the green lights are they're getting close to around 80 meters ahead of her right now, potentially 70 to 80 meters. So here's 9,200, inside 2 laps to go for O'Keeffe, the Puma Racing Elite. 75.5 again. And Van Es passes 2 laps to go too. So 28.25. She'd need under a 2:15.800 to get under that 30:40. So it'd have to be a pretty steep uptick in pace. But we'll see if she can approach her 30:55. O'Keeffe, the California native, coming around here. 500 meters remaining. Coming onto the home straight.
Teammate cheering her on in the infield.
She's not alone out there. It might look lonely, but there are a lot of people around the track cheering her on.
She's going to be right around that personal best. So 29:40 with a lap to go. She's been running 75s. If she ran another 75, she'd be like right at, maybe right over her personal best. So let's see if she can bring down this pace a little bit over the last 400. I've got to think that she knows that that's within her grasp, and it seems like she's trying to pick up and give whatever she has left to try to get that personal best right now.
That last lap was a 74.6.
So if she can do another one of those, she'll be right around that personal best that she set for herself earlier in the year.
There we go. Now we see the cadence start to shift, and she's driving for home inside 200 meters. This is it.
Athletes moving out to lane 2, which is so kind because, you know, they've got to be hurting as well.
That's right.
But the respect they have for one another and each other's efforts. Here comes O'Keeffe.
She is the favorite in this race, and we're seeing why. Okay, keep your eye on the clock. 30:55 is her personal best.
Well, that she's going to get.
And there it is, 30:52. As we're going to see Diane Van Es come through, too.
72.73 last lap. Good kick for Van Es at the end.
I think Van Es was trying to get under that 31-minute mark, which she just outside, 31:02.
Oof.
But a great time for her, too.
So 72 last lap for O'Keeffe to beat her own personal best that she set just a couple months ago at the 10. She ran 30:52 and 77. 30:52.77 is her new personal best, followed by Van Es, who ran a 68-second last lap. I knew she was coming in quick.
And how about WuGA HE?
Oh, yeah, WuGA HE.
31:14.
Nice.
Yeah, a new personal best for her by 30 seconds,
yeah.
over 30 seconds.
And you'll, once again, really love that she decided to go with that lead pack and, like, latch on to a pace that maybe seemed a little bit scary, but get pulled through 6K and ultimately come home with a 30-second personal best.
Pompeani in there, 31:45. And that was Chloe Herbier that we saw on the screen, the Belgian athlete. So we'll see what she ends up finishing. Ma coming in. A big personal best for Ma, too, 32:17. She's listed at 33:07. And then here comes the Belgian athlete, Chloe Herbier. Looking smooth. I think that was like around a 50-second personal best for her, too. So across the board here, Diane Van Es, her best on the track is listed at 33:20. So 31:02 tonight.
She just got a big hug from lifted up, twirled around hug. So
good.
Happy with that performance.
Chloe Herbier there, 32:38.